How you gonna walk through this world? It's so easy to misstep. How are you gonna walk through the world? So easy to screw it up. You gotta rise like the sun does every day. Rise up, look above. The light feels something like love. Hello and welcome. I'm Shelley Leedahl, a multi-genre literary writer coming to you from Ladysmith on Canada's lovely Vancouver Island. When anyone's asked what my 12 books are about, I say they're about the human heart. You see, I'm kind of a fool for love, and if you are too, then you're in the right place. This is Something Like Love, an eclectic literary podcast that explores that wildest of animals, love, through various genres, via short stories, poetry, serializations of longer works, and personal essays. I'll pull back the blinds to reveal the lives and loves of those braving the high seas of human emotion. First up are 10 edgy short stories featuring teens learning the hard way, as we do, about familial, platonic, and romantic love, and learning to love themselves on the journey. There'll be something new to listen to every Wednesday. Do you write too? At the end of each episode, I include a springboard exercise for anyone who feels like doing a bit of their own writing. One day, in the future, there may be a forum for listeners to share their work. Step by step, people. Old dog, new tricks. Sometimes, in fact, rather often, my stories come out of nowhere. But I want to share a secret with you. In the story you're about to hear, Can You Double Dutch?, I lifted one scene from my own life. I took a single, lived experience and built a fictional story around it. I'll tell you which scene at the end of the story. The protagonist here, Hayley, is a transatlantic model. She's 16, based in Toronto, and her pre-fame life seems so far away she's not even sure if her memories of friends in a long-ago small town or her recollections of a one-time happy family can be trusted. Everyone wants something from her. On a rare day without shoots or airports, all she wants to do is go for a simple walk, to feel connected, to do something that is real. Here is Can You Double Dutch? On rare Saturdays, Hayley is allowed the luxury of waking slowly. She rises through layers of sleep, as if gradually floating from the obscure depths of a river toward the wavering green light at the surface. Like coming out of a coma, she thinks. Always, too, the resistance against the current that delivers her to morning. So tired, she feels she could sleep for days, weeks, a lifetime. But the world will not let her sleep. One bird pleads with another in the frothy elm outside her window, and she hears the persistent cough of a lawnmower that is choosing to be difficult. These sounds are music she has mostly forgotten. The clock reads 9:18. She peels back the sheet. Her mother will be at the club already, well into a mixed doubles match and probably on the winning side, brown legs gleaming beneath tennis whites. Her father, an oral surgeon in a rainy city surrounded by mountains, will still be in bed with his third wife, experiencing more than a modicum of resentment that Oliver, their 3-year-old, a brother Hayley knows mostly from Christmas card photos, still sleeps between them and is not yet weaned from his mother's breast. Hayley glances at the ensuite bathroom mirror. No shows, no shoots, no airports. Her first day off in, Well, it doesn't bear thinking about. Today, no one, not a photographer, not Lindsay, her neurotic agent who has a propensity for gold shoes, or any of the voices attached to the myriad hands she is regularly required to shake, will remind her that she is beautiful, that her face and her coltish frame are responsible for determining the luster of her future. Already she's gone transatlantic. She has the look. She is at the pinnacle. She is 16. Her grandmother clips and tapes articles about her into scrapbooks. Screw them all, she thinks. It is too much. Fame has crashed around her too quickly, like a rogue wave. She drapes a towel across the mirror and closes the door with a satisfying click. The day is wide open. The sun warms each room with soft light like a low-watt bulb. What month is it? Oh yes, June. Haley asks herself simple questions several times a day. Where am I and what am I doing? Where do I have to be tomorrow? In the kitchen, she plucks an orange from the Mexican bowl on the counter and digs her thumbnail into its pocked skin. Juice drips into her palm and over her slender wrist. She licks it away. The sourness pulses in her ears. She is both always and never hungry. The two states blur, and she never knows which to trust. She climbs onto a high leather stool, hooks her feet around the rungs, back to the sun's warmth. Awake now, and blessedly alone. She is acutely conscious of the quiet and of her proximity to the cell phone that is not ringing. Her last act is to close the laptop's lid. She unplugs it too, for good measure. Her mother has left a note on the table. Having lunch with friends, see you at dinner. Feel like Thai? We'll go out. Her mother's friends. She has loads of them. Classy women who drive fast cars with creamy leather interiors and enjoy the attentions of younger men who look nothing like their former husbands. Her mother is in love with her big life in the big city. When Haley returned from 4 months in Japan, it was evident. Men's slippers beneath the bed, a clot of black hair in the drain, that her mother's not been lonely. The girl remembers friends she'd left in a small town carved from forest, another place and time. Before her full lips and fawn-like eyes, her long bones and pouting expression started appearing on billboards and in magazines, and she and her mother moved to Toronto, where the action is, her mother had said, piling their lives into cardboard boxes marked fragile and kitchen and watch your back. Haley recalls several phone numbers and thinks about how strange this remembering is, the numbers coming back to her like old nursery rhymes, unbeckoned. If she did decide to call the girl she'd been close to when she was 13, would the timbre of their voices suddenly change when they realized who it was? She wondered what might be said at their end after goodbye. She seems to have misplaced the ability to speak naturally with people her own age, or maybe she's just hypersensitive to being different. The curse of beauty. Sometimes she thinks even cats and dogs regard her with caution. There is one comfortable chair in the house, and she makes her way toward it with a cup of lemon tea. It is an hour for turning inward, for looking back. She recalls a large dog running toward the sound of the fridge door opening. There was a shed for jumping off of into the safety of snow. If she rolls the tape back far enough, there are buried treasures she only allows herself to consider one at a time and not often. Playing Monopoly with her parents, both of them fondly smiling at each other and touching arms and faces like they couldn't resist not touching each other for any length of time. She recalls eating outside on the patio as a family, barbecues and picnics beside a river, going for long drives in the country and letting the roads run out. Are her memories real? She sips the hot drink, lets it scald her tongue. draws out an evening in a canoe with her parents on a northern lake. The sun had painted the water bronze, and her parents had paddled from shore to shore while she sat on a folded beach towel in the middle of the craft, hands flat against the fiberglass bottom. Now she smells the musty canvas life jacket looped over her head. Her father lifts her out at the opposite shore, and the three of them stand with their feet in the wet, sucking sand. They search far across the water for the beach they've left, but see only trees, so dark and sharp they look scissored into the horizon. She tries to hold on to this image, but the trees become curtains, other tall, thin girls with magazine smiles, reams of men who praise and appraise. Everyone wants something from her. Enough daydreaming, she thinks, unfolding her thin legs. I should do something with this day. She stands at the picture window facing the avenue and stretches. Two young boys weave down the street on BMX bikes. Neighbors? She's never around long enough to know them. Across the street, a pregnant woman is cleaning windows with a white rag. Her hand moves in circles across the glass as if she's caressing skin, her own belly. The beauty of the image, Haley thinks, is its utter simplicity. A woman unaware that she is watched, going about her ordinary business. How satisfied she appears. How alien. The city calls Haley into itself. She slides into slim jeans and running shoes, pulls her long copper hair into a band. What is it like out? A t-shirt might not be enough. She ties a cashmere sweater around her waist as insurance against a cold, and props a pair of blue-lensed sunglasses on her head. Then she walks, following the sidewalk as it curves north, past brick houses with white cornices and black wrought iron gates. The street is drizzled in light, and when she breathes deeply, she believes she smells new leaves unfurling. Lawns are buzzed and spring flowers, red and yellow tulips, bright daffodils, flourish. A middle-aged man with a slight limp is carrying a folded newspaper and whistling a 5-note tune. Joyful, she thinks. Real. She swings her arms and takes large steps, careful not to break her mother's back on cracks between the cement. A red car passes, gleaming where still wet from a wash. The driver, a woman with one hand on the wheel and another clutching a cell phone, doesn't look her way. Haley continues. A bus pulls up behind her. She is approaching a stop and realizes that the driver is slowing for her. She waves him on. She's never ridden a city bus, wouldn't even know how. Soon there's a park and a couple rollerblading hand in hand. As they pass, Haley notices that the boy is actually pulling his awkward partner, unsteady on her blades. It looks like a movie to her, the people actors. This couldn't be the real world, she decides. The sounds of children at play chime around her. They crawl and slide and swing through a jungle of playground equipment, painted bright red and yellow. Tulip colors, Haley thinks. Families spread picnic lunches across blankets, and children chase their own imaginary shadows and each other through the maple trees. A woman in a denim skirt is pushing dark-haired twins in a double stroller. She smiles at Haley, and Haley smiles back. She feels herself getting lighter. At the far side of the park, she waits for traffic to break, then crosses the street, leaving the rich sounds of families behind. Now she's in a residential neighborhood where the streets run long and straight as ladders. Ordinary bungalows next to tall clapboard houses and new split levels with designs swirled into stucco exteriors. Large garages stick out in front, some with basketball nets attached to them. She senses movement behind windows, notes a ball glove in yellowed grass, but there are only the birds and a barking dog to prove the scene is real. I can trust my ears, Haley thinks. She keeps hearing a car horn in the distance, a bird high overhead. There's a slight wind. Someone is calling to someone else. There's an airplane now. She suddenly realizes two things and repeats them like a little song in her head. I am delightfully invisible and keenly alive. A walking song. She matches her footfalls to its rhythm. She can walk as far as the road will take her, and wherever that is will be just fine. She hasn't thought to bring money or sunscreen. Lindsay would have her head. She hasn't brought water. She hasn't left a note for her mother, and she resists patting her pocket to see if she's even remembered to bring keys. The freedom is intoxicating. Her legs are loose. Something like helium's filled her body. One block intersects into the next. She approaches a junior high school. A group of boys are skateboarding on a half-pipe. Their wheels make a zipping sound in her ears. The boys don't turn. They don't say anything to her. Delightfully invisible, keenly alive. A woman with thin white hair and hands that seem too large for her slight body waters her grass. She's curved over a cane. Her scalp gleams beneath the wisp of hair. She waves with her fingers spread apart. The world is slowing down, Haley thinks, and it is a good thing. Nice day, the girl calls, waving back to the woman. Somebody's grandma, she thinks. What has become of her own grandmother? A voice that sounds like her own answers. She lives in a house with a screened veranda on the edge of a town left behind. A jet flies overhead, splitting the pale sky with a frayed white ribbon. There's a man sweeping church steps, a confectionery with a yellowed advertisement for 2-for-1 movie rentals in the window. A Harley-Davidson nosed up to the curb. A little further, a pair of coveralled legs jut from beneath a jacked-up car in a gravel driveway. Real, Haley thinks. It is all real. She feels the bones of her feet against the tongues of her shoes, the slight hug of the sweater around her waist, the watch like 2 fingers measuring her wrist's minute circumference, the mellow breeze on her arms and face, sun lathering the back of her head with warmth. Across the street, 2 girls spin long double-skipping ropes, while a third jumps between them. Haley crosses and stops to watch what looks like magic. She feels like she's in a children's book, in a story about 3 girls skipping. The skipper runs out, rope still turning. Her knees are like 2 bulbs in her legs. She'll be tall like me, Haley muses. The girl is looking at her, calling, "Can you double Dutch?" Haley unties her sweater. $500 designer dollars. It puddles on the sidewalk. She waits until her eyes adjust to the rhythm of the ropes, then darts into the center. "You're doing it!" shrieks the girl at the south end of the rope. The world's a blur of colors. Haley skips to the count of 20, then ducks out of the double ropes. "Thanks," she says, fastening the sweater around her hip bones. "That was fun. You girls have a great day." The children carry on like she was a spirit who appeared and disappeared in the same moment. The road swells up a steep hill. At the crest, rooftops spread out like peppermints. Haley spots the green squares of parks and in the gray distance, the cube shapes of downtown. Perfect, this looking, this seeing, this moment of being right here in the heart of the world. It's been too long since she's willed time to stop. The rest of her life has nothing to do with this. This belongs only to her. A man in a streamlined helmet, lycra shorts, and a racing jersey cycles past. He turns to her, after, and turns again as if in recognition. Or is it something else? Admiration? Awe? Lust? everything that is not real. She knows it's over then, a temporary spell, and begins to make her way back along a different route. What time is it now? She considers the sun. How easy the evaporation of a day, she thinks. It will be a meandering now. She tries to imagine the lives behind a paint-peeled door, behind a Canadian flag tacked over a basement window. Real people, living out real lives, not cardboard cutouts, not airbrushed, not implanted, not edited into perfection. How little I know of anything that truly matters, she thinks. How far from this I exist. A paralyzing noise shatters her maze of thoughts. It is close, around the corner. It takes a few moments to associate the squeal of tires with the large, convulsing dog a few meters away. A woman sits motionless in the driver's seat, hands locked on the wheel. The dog, a lab with limbs in impossible directions, is quivering in a puddle of blood. A woman flies from the corner house toward the accident. "Oh my God, what have you done?" Her grief is poured out like a strange language. Primal, Haley thinks, so absolutely real. The woman lurches toward the broken body of her pet. "That's my dog!" Haley runs toward them. The woman glances at the animal and stumbles like she's buzzed or dizzy, hands over her mouth as if that's where her pain begins. The driver hasn't moved. Haley undoes the knotted sleeves of her sweater and spreads it on the street. She carefully lifts the dog and places it on the sweater, then cradles it like a gangly infant. It goes still. She squints at the driver. There's nothing to be done. "Let's take him home," Haley says to the weeping woman. She stands with the dog in her arms, unaware of the weight straining her biceps, and carries it into the woman's yard, around the side of the house, into the fenced backyard. "I'm going to put him down now," Haley says, and she slowly sets the heavy animal on the grass. The woman kneels and leans into her, sobbing. Haley feels her arms embrace the woman. She senses neighbors entering the yard, a toddler crying at the sight of his mother crying, and then wailing even more when he recognizes the bloody mass with the familiar blue collar. Another woman arrives, and the weeping woman leaves Haley's arms for those she knows. Accusations and decisions are made in the mirage of background voices. Haley stares at her own hands, the blood on them, a ragged nail. She turns them slowly, sees two strange creatures she does not know as her own. She is a new country, keenly alive. A haze of color moves toward her, a uniform, a man. "Your sweater," he says, and bends to retrieve it. They'll both know. There'll be no use for it now. That was Can You Double Dutch, written and read by me, Shelley Leedahl. Music? Well, you can blame that on me too. Zak Cohen was the producer. The scene I borrowed from my own life is the sad scene concerning the dog. I've been the person who lifted an injured dog off a road and returned it to its owner. You don't forget that kind of thing. This story has a stream of consciousness flow to it. As Haley walks around her neighborhood, her thoughts are all over the place, which is something that frequently does happen when one goes for a solitary walk with no destination in mind. If you feel like writing, I'd suggest you begin by going for a walk. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "All truly great thoughts are conceived by walking," and I definitely concur that getting out into the fresh air for a walk or hike can be immensely inspiring. You may have a random encounter with a stranger, explore an alley or trail that's new to you, find an item of clothing on the roadside. Why is it there? What do you hear during your walk? What interesting sights do you see? Do you smell freshly cut grass, lilacs, Mexican food, gasoline, smoke? All the inspiration one needs can often be found just on the other side of the door. I hope you'll join me next Wednesday for episode 9 of Something Like Love. In the story Jane's Room, a babysitter learns that there's something truly creepy about her highly unchildlike charge. And why does the girl use the pronoun we to refer to herself? Could be there's something supernatural going on. The 10 stories in the Something Like Love series were made podcastable via the Canada Council for the Arts Digital Originals Grant Program, and I am super grateful. How are you going to walk through this world? It's so easy to misstep.